Hey, this is Joel Cameron. Thanks for checking out this video. In this particular video, I'm going to deal with room mics. So far, I've gotten isolation and a little bit of EQ on most of the portions of the drum kit now, and now I want to start adding some ambience. I'm not reaching for reverb yet or any of that kind of stuff because I've got a pair of room mics. So let's take a listen and see what they sound like. So there's some nice space. It's kind of dark. Again, like all these tracks, there was no processing used at all. This is actually a pair of Coles 4038s. So the ribbon mics are kind of dark. There's a lot of low-mid information, which has a tendency, when it's down low, I want to hear more room. When I get it up to where I'm hearing some space, it feels too bulky, it's too chunky to me. So the first thing I'm going to do with it up, and I'll bring it up a little bit louder than normal so I really get a sense of the space, I'm going to put an EQ in. And again, since I am subtractive boy, I'm going to go ahead and start lightening it up a little bit. Lightening? Yeah, I guess lighten. To lighten it. Pulling out some lows. So that's pulling out some of the low lows. Need to get some low mids out though. Just dip some. Sweep. Okay, that's too bulky there still, so I went too far up. Looking for the spot where it kind of lightens, but it doesn't feel too light. See, down here, the room feels thin. So I'm going to raise it back up. Somewhere around there, because there's still sort of a low frequency content that I like. And I'm just going to lighten the amount of processing. I could play with the bandwidth, but that actually sounds pretty good. Let's just bypass it and see what it sounds like without. Here it is with. And out. Back in. So it just lightens it up. It's a room mic, and I probably won't actually use that much, but now there's a couple things that you can do with room mics. Obviously, music, mixing, whatever is art. You can kind of do whatever you want, but I tend to like to take one of two approaches. Either I like to find a nice bit of room that sort of complements the whole vibe of the whole overall presentation, I guess, of the drum kit, and leave it fairly consistently there. Or I'm going to use it sort of as one would use a reverb, where typically things like snare or toms or whatever have a little bit more ambience on them than, say, the kick drum. You usually don't want in pop music for the kick drum to have a ton of ambience. And I may go, hey, this is a cool, just sort of natural medium sounding room, but I don't want that much on the kick drum. So guess what I'm going to do? Yes, I'm going to sidechain. Yay, sidechain. Which sidechain am I going to use? I'm going to gate. That's what I'm going to do. Where's my gate? Expander gate. Using the handy dandy Avid Gate 3 or whatever, Dynamic 3 here. And I'm going to sidechain off of the snare drum, because what I want to do is I want to basically use the gate to reduce the level of the room. That's 32, bus 32. And I want the level of the room reduced overall, but I want it to open up on the backbeat. I want it to open up on the snare drum. So I'm going to take the sidechain signal from the snare drum, engage my sidechain. And I'll start with the fast attack, but remember, sound travels roughly a foot a second. And these mics are, maybe 10-ish feet away from the drums, so I can like start it somewhere around here for the attack, and that's generally pretty good. Let's just see what happens here. Now you can hear it opening. Obviously not very natural at all. You could do like some Phil Collins kind of gated thing if you want. Well, first and foremost, let me raise this up. And I don't want 40 dB reduction. That's kind of silly. I just want to contain it a little bit. 7, 8, 10, 6 dB, something like that. And I'm going to give this longer release, longer hold. Yeah, I like the longer. Just kind of mess with the time constants until you get the size of the room and the decay that fits the tempo and all that. See, I'm just messing with all these. There's really no set way to go, but I'm just messing with the amount of production, totally, the range, the attack, the amount of hold, the release, the threshold. That seems to be pretty good there. Now if I bypass it, you hear how much on the kick drum. You just really get a sense of it's back in a room. This is a little tighter, but there's some ambience on the snare. Now, if you're in a bigger room, you know, you could use longer releases and things like that to get a little bit more of the sound of the room, the size of the room coming on through. But that's kind of it. It's not a big, super crazy thing, but I've EQ'd it to get some of the weight and the mass out of it so that I can actually turn it up without it bulking things up. And then by putting the expander's in front of the EQ, by the way. I generally put dynamics processors in front of EQs because EQs, not so much when the dynamics processor is sidechained off of something else, it's paying attention to something else entirely. But a lot of times in normal serial applications of dynamics processors, if you put an EQ in front of it, it can change it. So I typically get the dynamics the way I want, and then I EQ after the fact. For the most part, there are exceptions, but that's generally my approach. So that right there is kind of it. It's a little over the top. Level-wise, I'll still bring it back some. But see, that's natural sounding. So I've kind of got all the elements sort of happening there. So anyway, please check out my blog at joelsmixup.blogspot.com for various and sundry things recording related, and I appreciate you watching this video. Thanks a lot.